what's going on in Russia, the meeting between Orban and Vladimir Putin is so important because we know that you know, they were planning for a meeting in Budapest, and I'm talking about Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, which then it was they have decided not to go with that plan. But after all, looking at what's going on between the United States and Russia, considering 28-point plan uh, on the part of the United States, then changed some. They modified it a little bit during the meeting that Rubio had in Geneva with Ukrainians together with Europeans. It seems that the plan has been handed over to Russians, and Russians are just seeing what is in that plan. How do you see the way that things are changing in terms of the conflict in Ukraine? Are you optimistic toward what's going on?
Well, Nima, I'd say realistic. I have always been against dismissing this latest overture as, a fool's errand or dead on arrival. I mean, let's face it, the proposal or talking points haven't arrived yet. So how could they be dead on arrival? So what's happening now is they are going to arrive, and they're going to arrive in the person of Witkoff, who is due in Moscow probably Monday, maybe Tuesday. But the whole thing is very, very urgent, very pressed very, very urgently by Trump. And Putin is playing along. Putin was in Kyrgyzstan, for God's sake, Bishkek, and he gave this big press conference yesterday and said, "Look, I'm hurrying back to Moscow now. I'll be ready for anything. I have to go to India on the third, but I'm here, and I'm willing to talk to these people on the basis of what was agreed to in Anchorage." Now, there are two things there. Trump got off this cat kick about immediate ceasefire. He said, "All right, no immediate ceasefire. We go for the whole enchilada, the whole thing." Okay. And number two, Trump undertook not to let Zelensky or anyone else put the kibosh out to thwart progress in this direction. Now, Trump wasn't able to do that, or wasn't smart or not hard nosed enough to do that. And he's been called on that now by Putin. But Putin said, "Look, we're ready. We're ready to discuss these things, but realize that the basis has to be on what we agreed to in Anchorage, to include excluding the Ukrainians thwarting it. And so long as that happens, we're listening. We'll talk to. There's lots to talk about, but we're ready." Now, of course, he explicitly says we're waiting for Witkoff with bated breath. Well, he doesn't say bated breath, but everybody else says, who's sensible, who doesn't dismiss this out of hand as, well, on the grounds, let's face it, what I call the Trump derangement syndrome, on the grounds that, look, Trump can't possibly do anything that's good, or even out of self-centered motives like wanting a peace prize. I mean, even that, you can't, if it's good, forget it if it comes from Trump. So there's a lot of that. So the latest thing you mentioned was today. So Putin gets on the plane from Kyrgyzstan, goes back to Moscow. Next thing you know, he's meeting with Orban. Now, Orban, of course, has made no bones about this. He's delighted that the next summit, hopefully, will be in Budapest. And not Trump, but Putin's playing along with that to a T. And they're shown together, and the reportages, yes, we hope this happens. And yeah, we're ready, says Orban. And so everything is still on the table. It's not like this is something unreal. And I'll just finish now. So the main points, of course, in play here are the Russians have lost this thing. Trump has acknowledged that. He said on that plane going down to Florida for Thanksgiving, look, the Russians are in control here. You want to lose 50,000, 60,000 more people, or do you want a deal? Okay, that's the biggie. Now, the next thing, how do you explain the urgency I mean, I, I blanch to hear myself say this. It seems so trite and unreal in realpolitik, but Trump lusts after a Nobel Peace Prize. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, look at the chronology. Nominations opened in mid October, they close on January 31st. I don't at all exclude the notion that this, in part, explains why Trump is doing all this. The big thing is the victory on the ground by the Russians, but this plays a part, and it counts, in my view, for the urgency with which it's being pursued. Now, last thing I'll say is the British, as they usually say, this is not proper. This is no way to hold negotiations. This is chaotic. Well, yeah, but it's Trump. And the big thing is Putin is not dismissing it out of hand. He said, all right, come on, Witkoff, let's see what you have to say. Let's see if we can get this damn war over.
Yeah. I can't hear you, Nima.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Graham, when it comes to the negotiations with Russia, do you think that the United States would push for, because the three crucial points in the plan is one of them is the limitation of the size of the army of Ukraine. The other one is NATO membership and the territorial accession, concessions. How how do you see Donald Trump convincing Europeans together with Europeans in these three important and key issues, which, in my opinion, without addressing them, somehow compromising on them with
Yeah.
Europeans and Ukraine, you can do nothing
Of
in
course.
Ukraine.
Yeah, well, Nima, you raise a very interesting point and something I've thought about. I'm going to be a little bit unconventional here, or perhaps impolite. I've wondered now for quite some months, at least, as to what kind of hold that the EU has over Trump in this question of negotiations. I go back to the immortal words of that great East European stateswoman, Victoria Nuland, who in 2014 said, F the European Union. I think that question is now quite pertinent. We've been over this thing before, over and over. Europe has no money, it has no armies, it has no significant weaponry, it has no plan. It seems confused about its identity, where it's going, what the ultimate goal is. I wonder how long it takes for Trump to decide to take up Victoria Nuland's words of to hell with the EU. I mean, what can the EU do? They can scream, they can fight, but I don't know what they're in, whether they're in any position to seriously block a peace treaty that is backed by the United States. And I'm afraid, I mean, I feel sorry for Zelensky. I think maybe he's a nice guy. He's been brave. He's been put in a terrible position, but he has no cards in this game. What can he offer? If Trump says go to war, he'll go to war. If Trump says stop the war, he'll have to stop the war. Trump could have stopped all of this stuff many, many months ago, as we know. So I just wonder how realistic this is as to what Trump is worried about in saying to hell with the EU or to hell with Zelensky on this. We're calling the shots. It's our weapons. It's our money. It's our long-term strategy. Maybe Congress is the great fear, and you might have a better sense of this, Ray, than I do. But as to whether they can, you hear all this talk, incredible talk about, today if we lose Ukraine, tomorrow's Soviet troops are in Berlin, and then the next day after that, Chinese troops are in Taiwan. I mean, that's the progress of events. This is absolutely crazy. So I wonder why. I wonder if Trump is maybe discovering that he has more power than he thought he had, or that he should maybe try something new. But obviously something is working now, as Trump has taken a tougher line. We're investigating corruption in Ukraine. Zelensky is obviously being downplayed. His reputation is suffering widely. There's no single European statesman on the scene who can say otherwise, except, I'll have to say, Viktor Orban. And when I mentioned to my European friends that I think Viktor Orban is the only serious leader, they shriek in horror and, are ready to consider me a close ally of Trump or whatever else. But I think Trump is beginning to move towards playing hardball. He's got the cards.
Ray, Donald Trump has decided to send Rubio to Europe, to Geneva, to talk with Europeans and Ukrainians. And he's talking about sending Witkoff together with, with his son-in-law to Russia. What is that? Do you think that isn't good to send Rubio together with Witkoff? Because how do you see the whole thing together?
Well, Rubio went to Geneva, but that was last Sunday. I have no knowledge that Rubio is going with Witkoff this coming week to Moscow. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh,
No, I'm talking about no.
Okay, so he,
Witkoff gonna go together with Donald Trump.
Jared Kushner, yeah,
Jared
okay,
Kushner,
but not
yeah.
Rubio. Yeah. Well, Rubio is someone that Trump seems to have to tolerate. Just 2 weeks ago, Rubio openly said, about Russia, well, they invaded Ukraine. They're terrible people. You got to get them out of there. We've got to support Ukraine. 2 weeks ago, okay? Now, to send him to Geneva to talk with various people, Ukrainians, Swiss, Europeans, well, that was kind of a sop to the Europeans. I agree with Graham. The Europeans don't play a role here. Matter of fact, I think it was actually Lavrov or Peskov who said, look, European, the reason they're not invited is because they don't matter anymore. They're not involved, okay? But for appearance's sake, well, there's Rubio. And the more important thing is that this fellow, Daniel Driscoll, said to be very close to J.D. Vance, he went to Kiev, okay? And what did he say in Kiev? Forget about it. The war's over, you guys. You got to be really realistic here because this is what's going to happen, okay? And if you don't believe that you're losing on the front, I can show you maps and pictures, but he added this. He says, that the Russians are producing rockets and missiles up to kazoo. I mean, they're putting them in buildings now that they run out of room for, so they can use that at any time. So look, this is it. As my friend J.D. Vance said 2 months ago, it's over. We're not doing Ukraine anymore. Whoa, the reaction was terrible by the Europeans, but that's what Driscoll told them. And then he heard that some Soviets, sorry about that, some Russians were meeting, I think in Abu Dhabi, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, Abu Dhabi. Yeah.
With the Ukrainians. And he said, oh, man, this is an example of how improper U.S. diplomacy is. He said, maybe I'll crash that meeting, okay? So he goes to Abu Dhabi. They let him in the door. They let him talk to folks, but these are people negotiating prisoner swaps or, putting dead bodies back where they belong. As the senior fellow there was an intelligence official, and he made it clear, look, it's nice to see you, Mr. Driscoll, but this is going on at a different level. We're eagerly awaiting Witkoff on Monday or Tuesday, and that's where this will happen. So, whatever ideas you have, nice to have, but look, this is going forward without your input. Thanks very much for what you told the Ukrainians. So this flurry of activity this week, and not least, and this is really worth noting, it's hard these days to be an intelligence analyst, and particularly a current intelligence analyst. Now, Graham knows what I'm talking about. You have to keep up with everything. Now it's all video, okay? So you got the plane, the president of the United States on a plane going on vacation in Thanksgiving going to Florida, right? So he sits on the thing. You can hardly hear the guy, okay? And I say, what's going on? He said, well, the Russians are in charge. The Russians are winning. You want to lose 50, 60,000 more troops, or you want a deal, okay? Well, that's the reality. That's the background. And that, I think, is what Witkoff is going to be starting with. And whether Trump has the cojones, whether he has the wherewithal to go ahead and do it this time, well, he's got the facts on the ground behind him. He's got the incredible willingness of Putin to entertain these overtures, despite how improper they are. And so that's a lot going for him. We'll have to see on Monday or Tuesday, but it's far too premature to say this proposal, such as it is just talking points, really, is dead on arrival.